Okay, well, awesome. Awesome. Listen, welcome to the Floyd Potts Show. I'm Floyd Potts, your host. If you've been following me on my blog, the Floyd Potts Show, you know that I've been saying that I was going to be coming back on 108praiseradio.com. I'm at an event here, She Bills. This is awesome. And I've got my special guest here, Miss Kim Pendarvis. I'm going to bring her up a little bit. I'm going to talk about her in a minute here. But first and foremost, I want to thank each and every person that has been following me on my blog talk for the last 8 years. And then also I want to thank those who were following me last year when I was doing another show 5 days a week here on Power Up, 108 Praise Radio with Power Up in the Morning with my former co-host and everything. So I know she's doing some great things herself right now. But it's Saturday. It's the last Saturday of February. And I'm just excited to be here. My guest here, she's an author. She's an author. As a matter of fact, she came up this morning from Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm thankful that she is blessing us. She wrote up and everything, and her book is called 74 Tears on File. And if you've been following me the last 2 Saturdays on my blog talk, you know that Kim and I, Pendarvis, had our initial conversations and everything, and I said, well, we would go ahead and segue, and she would bless us by coming on board the Floyd Potts Show to start it. So what you hear in the background is the Women of She Bill event that they've got. So as I was saying, it's a blessing. So Kim, first and foremost, I do want to thank you for coming on board the Floyd Potts Show. I know you've got a lot of stuff. You're very, very busy. So I'm very, very thankful you took time out of your schedule to go ahead. Hey, she builds, and they build, right? I'm really thankful that you took time out of your schedule to come and really bless us. I know native of Montgomery, Alabama. I know you went to ASU and everything. I always say Hornet, but I know you've got some other schools that you love as well. So just tell the listening audience a little bit about Kim Pendarvis that we have not covered on the previous blogs, and then after that, you and I are going to go ahead. We're going to segue into a great conversation here on this Saturday afternoon.
Well, Floyd, nice to meet everyone, and thank you very much for having me on the show. Um, well, you covered everything as far as me being, a hornet. But, I must say that my favorite would be the Tuskegee Tigers because I did actually attend that college. And, they're a bit better than the Hornets. So that would be something new that I could cover with, the audience that they may not have known. And I'm really excited to get started.
Okay,
Awesome.
so let's go ahead and just bring the audience up to speed regarding your book. We know it's a sci-fi piece and everything, and I know on the blog talk when we conversated initially regarding that I had indicated that a lot of us, and particularly melanated people, don't really do the sci-fi. A lot of times we do different types of genres with books and everything. So we talk somewhat about the book, we talk somewhat about the characters, and we talk somewhat about the direction that you want the book to go in. Just tell the listening audience a little bit about that book, just to bring them up to speed and everything, and then after that, we're going to go beyond that to the areas that you and I did not cover on my blog talk. And by the way, my blog talk is the Floyd Potts Show, just as this show is the Floyd Potts Show .com. That particular show airs every Monday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the United States of America. So Kim, tell us a little bit, bring them up to speed regarding what we covered on the 2 shows, and then let's go from there. The mic is yours.
All right, thank you. So just for those who are interested in sci-fi and just all around any type of genre, I think that you will find 74 Tears on File very interesting. A little bit about the book. It is centered around 2 doctors, a scientist by the name of Dr. Naomi Milan and a engineer by the name of Dr. Roger Hannibal, and they're working on a project for the government called Project Scourge. And in that project, what they're working on is they're moving and trying to create cyborgs. They're trying to create the very first human-like cyborgs that the world has ever seen. And with that, they're also trying to work on how they can merge the lower class population, and I say specifically the lower class population, due to that population making up the majority, into becoming those cyborgs and just being a part of society. So that is the premise of the book, without going too much further, which I think that the readers would thoroughly enjoy.
Now, when you say the lower class society in that, you care to amplify on that? Because when you know, when some people, they hear that, the lower class society, and particularly in this day and time, they may want to know exactly what you mean by that lower class. Or is that lower class based on an ethnic background? Is it based on an economic situation? Is it based on the lack of information of direction that the society is going in, and they're just that lower class society is being left behind? So just help them understand a little bit who
Correct.
that lower class society is. Otherwise, we may get
Correct. So I always consider everyone equal. Okay, so you know, I as an author, I consider everyone to be equal. So really, what we would consider, or what the government would consider a lower class, would be your financial. So the upper class would be, of course, your aristocrats, your wealthy people, your people who own businesses, your, you know, pretty much in that category. Middle class would be, of course, the individuals who are making somewhere in between $40,000 maybe to $100,000 a year annually. So anyone that is not in either one of those two brackets would be considered the lower class population, according to just how our world is set up. So, and you know, those individuals tend to drive your market. Those tend to be in the majority, because it begins at the so-called lower class in the majority, and it just shrinks in size the higher up in wealth that you have. So those individuals, that's what the Project Scourge is centered around, strictly them. And it goes back into also Charles Darwin's survival of the fittest. So, you know, according to the government, the lower class people have never made it, have never done anything that would deem them to be excused to be used.
So as I'm listening to you, your book, though sci-fi, science fiction, I hear a lot more realism in that, as opposed to the science fiction and everything. But you're using the science fiction genre to bring this forward and everything. Okay. What was your motivation? What was it? I know that we talked just on the blog talk naturally about your biography and everything. In her biography, when I touched bases on it, what really inspired Kim to initially write was a situation with her mother. Her mother at the time had gotten ill, and the finances, from what I understand, were not there to adequately provide the services for her that you felt she needed. So that motivated you to write. And at that time, from our conversation, but you wrote something different there, one that was more like on anti-Bullitt type writing, old school writing, dealing with pre-Civil War and everything. But then you ended up with this genre, this sci-fi. And with this sci-fi, you ended up where you're telling a story about what's really been happening without really giving a whole lot about your book, right? What's really been happening, and particularly in this country, but we can say arguably around the world, in terms of those that are deemed the lower class and the other ones. You even referenced Charles Darwin with Darwinism and everything. So just tell them your motivation behind going this direction and then also let the listening audience know what you hope they get out of this particular piece. All right, your book. Let them know what you want, what your hopes are that after they read your book, what you hope they get out of it.
Right. So I'm just going to say, Floyd, I did not expect to be in this genre at all. I always had this lingering topic in the back of my mind. And, just to fill the audience in on some of what you're speaking of, yes, I actually began as an artist, just drawing pictures and so on and so forth. And then somewhere around my teen years, my mother did fall ill. And, we were so desperate for it. I particularly was desperate for, just a means to take care of her financially, because I did not want her to be, not taken care of. I wanted her to have the best. So, I decided to take some of my work and just create a story behind it. And that's how my initial book, Secrets of Their Shadowed Hearts, which is the antebellum set in 1820s Georgia, actually came off of the ground. And unfortunately, she did pass away before I completed the work. But I went on to actually write another book, which is a sequel to Secrets of Their Shadowed Hearts, Secrets of Their Shadowed Souls, which is the sequel to that book. I still had this lingering topic in the back of my mind because, and Floyd calls me a conspiracy theorist, which we'll get into that in just a moment. But, I always see things in society. So, nowadays you can relate it to the woke people. So I decided to just go ahead and capitalize on this thought. And I just started brainstorming it, writing some things down on paper. What's big in media right now is the cybernetic units. The cybernetic units. You'll see the media and the pop artists start doing, individuals like Beyonce and so on and so forth. So I just, I think they're going somewhere with this, and it just fit perfectly with, the topic. It motivated me to start writing this, and I particularly set the date for what I believe as an author, a reasonable enough time, if they started now, okay, to be able to make it in 2035. So the title of this book, and again, for those listeners, my name is Kayleen Pendarvis. That's my author's name. And the title of the book is 74 Tears on File. Okay. 2035. And it motivated me more or less to begin to speak on these potential cybernetic units that the government might be trying to move us into.
Where can they pick that book up, that beautiful book up?
Amazon.com. So it's an ebook, and it's $7.99. So Amazon.com is where the book can be located. Just go do a search for Kayleen Pendarvis, Pendarvis.
What's the pricing of that book?
$7.99.
So, 2034, we said, right? 2034, 2035?
2035, span of that.
Around that time frame. Okay. So, right now, the hope is that they get the book, read, and then they understand that maybe there's a potential to make some adjustments right now. Is that what you're saying?
When you say they, the
And
government?
No,
Or?
the underclass.
Okay.
Those of us that are underclass that are more likely to be subjected to the cybernetics and the different changes. We know we see a lot of stuff right now, Kim, in terms of the robotics. We know if we go back, I'm going to go back probably, maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when they started replacing human beings in a lot of mass production situations with car dealerships, and not car dealerships, but car production factories. They start replacing them with robotics. They start off where you had maybe 1,000 people, 1,500 people working at a plant. Next thing you know, because robotics seem to be a little bit more efficient, they didn't take days off, things like that. They turned around and cut probably half of that staff and replaced them with robotics. Okay, so right now, we're in a situation where that's even increased even more so. We've even seen, and I know it's a Christian radio station, but they know I always keep it real and everything. And that we see now where they're coming out with lifelike sex dolls, where there's an attempt to just replace so much. We know that with our cell phones, that we're not as social as we used to be. They don't really promote the relationship as much as they can, because now with these different dolls and different things that probably talk and walk and clean up a house or whatever, change a car or whatever, and do everything else, there's an attempt to replace. Now, I know you and I are going, and I do want to say this, I did call a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also one who has always also been, they deem us as contrarian. I'll say we're contrarians. We'll take away the conspiracy theorists. We'll just say we're contrarians. We're not those that are subject to the mindset of conformists. We're not conformists. Because we researched. That's why we're authors and everything.
I want to touch on some of that, yeah.
Let's touch on that then.
Yeah.
Okay, that fact in terms of the contrarian and why so let's do that then.
Yeah.
The mic is yours.
So, I talk a lot about the pyramid, okay? And we're all familiar with the model of the triangle and so forth. So I do mention that in my book, how at the very top, and just going back, if you could just imagine at the bottom of the pyramid, there would be your lower class population. Going up towards the middle of the pyramid, there's your middle class, and then at the very top, there's your upper. So, what goes up must come down. So, the upper, they need the lower, okay? Likewise, the lower needs the upper, all right? So this is why the upperclassmen, okay, and middle-classmen more or less, but I'll just stick strictly into the upperclassmen, have not rid themselves of the lower-class population. However, because they need something. However, with that being said, there was a lot of research. They do have a lot of problems that they speak about, the upperclassmen, when they speak about the issues in the working environment, the retail environment particularly, things that go on with the workers, difficulties, I would say specifically difficulties, with associates not coming to work on time, with associates not treating customers well, running business away, with associates being slow paced, associates, being opinionated too much. I mean, there's a lot of different things that, they as business owners and wealthy that if they could correct, they would correct. So, just beginning in the retail market altogether, there's so many things that they could do with a cyborg. Okay, the customers could come in and have a peaceful experience, a peaceful, speedy experience, and with a cyborg, just like with the self-checkout, for example, that they're kind of ridding, just with the supermarkets alone, they're trying to get rid of, the cashiers and so on and so forth, because there is no, there's no difficulties there aside from a random malfunction here and there. But it's going to be pretty accurate, and you'll be able to check yourself out. That's just an example. I can tell you myself, I've called over the phone. It seems like I'm speaking to a robot, okay, just in the automated systems, the IVRs. And even when I'm supposedly speaking to a live person, they sound so realistic, but you could tell it can't be. Okay, so even little things like that they're starting to try to test out. So the main character in the book, Dr. Naomi Milan, all right, she created a schematic. Now, her intentions was not to play into the government. She had no idea. She was just someone with a bright idea about it. And her intentions were to just create a pastime. Hey, this is a neat idea. This is, so she got picked up by the government, of course, with their agenda, but she never told them anything. She's just told, we'll give you everything you need. Don't worry about it, free of charge. And they actually used cadavers, real cadavers. They used the military with the idea that, okay, these people are dying in combat. There's the fine print. We don't, as long as you're on contract, we don't need your permission. Okay. So if you die, KIA, we're shipping you right over here to this, secret facility where these doctors are at. So it just becomes a big thing. So now the government feels like they have the golden ticket to make all of their dreams come true, and then the lower class population, they're not. There's no option. You know, there's just no option.
It goes back to what you said a few minutes ago. Darwinism, Darwinism, survival of the fittest. That they're enacting that, and you know, um, we have an election coming up this year. We have an election coming up this year. Okay. We know, as you're talking, to an extent, we have some control. To an extent, we have some control regarding slowing certain things down. To an extent, we have some control. Okay. Um, I think we have some control consistent with the knowledge. Um, I believe it's the book of Proverbs, chapter 11. Since they're talking the Holy Spirit, I got to go there. The book of Proverbs, chapter 9b, says that through knowledge, the just are delivered. Okay, so that being the case, knowledge. I think knowledge gives us a limited amount of power at this particular time frame. You know, a lot of it is training too. Would you agree? A lot of it's training along with the knowledge to try to know how to make the adjustment that as this cyborg movement continues, the cyborg cybernetics, that you're always valuable. Because I believe that you become more and more extinct and eradicated consistent with your value to society. Um, if we look at right now, we have an event here with a lot of sisters, right? In the last 40 years, 50 years, a lot of black men have been left behind because they have not made the transition regarding the training. We have become invaluable from an economic standpoint unless we're throwing a pigskin or we going up and down the court with the ball. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But the sisters have been getting educated, okay? They've been educating themselves. If you look at the movie, even Black Panther that we talked about, you look at that, the smartest person in the movie actually is a sister. The sister, his sister, right? Because she's the one with all the technology. Now we know also from a military standpoint, the strongest person is still a sister in that. Everything. Speak to brothers right now. Speak to them in terms of what you think as a sister they can do to also come on board and jump on board in terms of training, knowledge, and making sure that they are valuable economically and that they're not as easily replaced as they have been replaced. Because we know we talked about the King Albert plan. We're not going to get into that too much on here. But we know a lot of that in terms of population decimation and bringing down population. They're starting with black men. Through, number one, we join the military. We're on the front lines in war. We're always running point, easily kill off. We know that we look at police brutality, which is nothing new. We know we look at lynchings that go all the way back. We know we look at when we did have a level of transatlantic slave trade and everything. We know that the job there was to wipe out the men and everything. Talk to the brothers and let them know what you feel they should be doing to be brought up to speed to understand what's taking place and everything from a training standpoint, from a knowledge standpoint, and also from the standpoint of not battling the sisters on this thing. Because the one thing I did love about Black Panther, it was about unity. It was about unity because we have to work together. And if the sisters have all the knowledge, but us brothers are fighting you because of that knowledge, it becomes easier for cybernetics to replace us, starting first with us. Because once they start with us, once they wipe us out or knock us down, then they're coming after you.
Well, it's a good thing that you said something about value, and people becoming extinct and so on and so forth. Um, the great thing about, according to the government, the great thing about the cyborgs is they don't expire. There's a lifetime warranty on those. Um, so not only do they have the ability to create someone, but that individual can last for thousands of years and never age, because they use things such as nanomachines nanomachines.
Okay.
Without the nanomachines, their project, may not work. But through the use of nanomachine,
Use
a
a nanomachine.
nanomachine is a very microscopic um, computer that whatever you tell it to do, it will do. So in the case of
Mm.
the 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 doctors experienced these corpses, like I said, the government was using KIA. So they were bringing KIA. These individuals were decomposing en route to the garden. That's where the doctors are at. So they were decomposing in the meantime. So they were experiencing a little bit of rigor mortis, and the doctors had to stop this. Okay, because if the corpses, decompose, then you know that nobody wants a walking dead, right? Um, so nanomachines were
They got us
placed.
up. Go ahead.
Right. Well, correct. Ironic. Um, but the nano machines were placed there to hinder the decomposing state, the rigor mortis. Okay. So, with that being said, they can definitely last for thousands of years. So, there was definitely benefit for the government of that. And I will say, to your, concern about men empowering themselves and so forth in the book, I can't stress enough, I really stress the government making decisions for everyone, no matter what. Okay. And I'm really showing you how powerless you are, no matter what you do. More or less, the best thing you can do is run. Okay. And the best thing that the men can do is protect as they're en route away. Okay. Because the government actually has more power than you think. Okay, everybody thinks government, financials, politics, so on and so forth, but they're the decision makers of really how we think. They're programmers. They determine a lot. So, to your question about how men can, help their sisters be on board with the knowledge wise, well, of course, be knowledgeable. Don't, you know, combat this. But in the book, 74 Tears on File definitely highlights government control. You are, as you're a reader, you are in the cockpit with the individuals who are running it. And that's what makes the book proprietary. You're not behind, you're actually behind the scenes with the individuals who are making the moves in the nation.
But let me say this: listening to that, you're in that cockpit with them, but to an extent, also because we are in that cockpit, we're in a position to have some limited infiltration as well. There's a book I always reference it, Sun Tzu's Art of War. You know, and in Art of War, it talks about strategy, preparation, deception, and then indirect attacks. So one of the ways that you defeat your enemy is by aligning with your enemy and everything. Given the fact we're in that cockpit, so now we're kind of connected to that enemy. We know that enemy's moves. And keep in mind, people, when we're talking about the enemy, we're talking more so of a system. We're not sitting here calling any individual people or anything like that, any race, ethnic background, because this is robotics versus humans that we're talking about. We just so happen to reference brothers because in the beginning, when we talk about those on that lower echelon, a lot of times that's the plan of that system. That system, at the end of the day, we know doesn't care about anybody, but the ones at the top of that pyramid that you talked about and everything. But we reference the brothers because once again they're on the bottom. But I think one of the greatest things we could have done was when we got involved in military. I know that a lot of us will encourage our children not to go into the military, but by being involved in the military, once again, it allows you to be connected in that cockpit. And because you're in that cockpit, you're in a position to make some decisions as well. You know what I mean? You can influence some decisions that may work against you or work against, let's say, for instance, your particular group of people on a whole. You've got a decision. The thing I think we run into sometimes, though, Kim, is that we have to make sure that those individuals, whether male or female, that are in that cockpit, when they hear certain decisions being made that are counterproductive for those of us on the whole, that to still one of Farrakhan's lines, that they have the testistical fortitude to shut that down and not be afraid of losing their life to save the lives of many, many more people. You know, the thing I love about your reading, and as we have our conversation, this is our third interview, and I feel that I can interview you 1,000 times, and it's going to keep bringing out more and more information that's relevant to what has happened in the past, and also relevant to the direction that we're heading in. Tell us a little bit more about what you have on the horizons, and then also let them know your book again and where they can pick it up at. Okay, well, what does Kim have on the horizons with what she's doing?
And it's also good that you mentioned the military. And I must say, in that cockpit, these individuals, they control the military. All right, that's their protection. And there is no overturning who controls you. In that, and I also highlight that in the book as well. And I must also say that the two main characters, Dr. Naomi Milan, is a part of the military, as well as Dr. Roger Hannibal. They're a part of the military, so they're in the cockpit. Um, and some things do arise. And it's good to say, okay, I can definitely infiltrate. Those will be the common ideas, but you know, when you're speaking to individuals who have been running the world for thousands of years in a fraternity, sorority, okay, two little people, what can they do against this big beast system? All right. So, these are the challenges that are presented in this book. It's more to it than just saying, I'm sitting next to the person who is heiress to running the world. And, what can you do in that? What can you do in that case? This person has been having a lifeline, a lifetime of training to, run the world. And you can't just make moves without them noticing. Okay. So these things are totally highlighted in the book, which again is 74 Tears on File, that can be found on Amazon.com, downloaded as an ebook. And you can find it under K Lane Pendarvis. Again, 74 Tears on File. And what I'm particularly moving into, I'm actually working on another project as well. So this is my third book, but I'm actually moving into a fourth one as well. That genre will be a little different. So I'm actually going to be a jack of all trades in different genres. So that's where I'm headed.
Okay. You're going to hold the mic. There's
Okay.
an organization you told me about that you, I think you're managing on LinkedIn. Tell them a little bit about that. Because
Yes.
it's all about connectivity.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm actually a managing director on LinkedIn. My group's name is Author Bloggers Book Reviewers Hangout. So I welcome all authors. If you want to promote your work, if you want to network, if you want to ask questions to other authors, things like, how did you begin? What do you do? What are you currently working on? There's also bloggers are welcome, because authors, could use bloggers to help them promote their work and so forth across this social network, and book reviewers. So, again, it's very beneficial for authors because there's people on there who will work for hire or who will just work for pastime. They just love reading, so they will give the author some awesome feedback. So that's the name of my group, Author Bloggers Book Reviewers Hangout, and that could be located on LinkedIn.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Good stuff, people. Good stuff. I mean, I hope that those that are listening right now, and even all these shows, you can always go back and look at them on YouTube. I hope that those that are listening right now, that are looking right now, that you're getting something out of this. I mean, we're living in phenomenal times right now. Everything we're doing is revelatory. And truth be told, it's been revelatory for the last, I'd say, 100 years. There's been a lot of change, a lot of energy just been changing and everything. And I was telling you even before the show, trends. It's important to understand the trends. We know if we look at right now the movie that came out, Black Panther, and there's some energy that's being spread there. And we look at what we're talking about today in terms of number one, knowledge, understanding. We always hear the saying that people say that knowledge is power, but we know that's actually very incomplete. We know that the proper application of knowledge is power and everything. If you've got a whole bunch of knowledge, but you don't know what to do with it, it's like a motivational tape. A motivational book. We buy the book, then we figure tomorrow we're gonna become a millionaire. It doesn't work like that. Some application that's got to take place. That you've got to be involved and everything. I know you said you're gonna do another genre. You want to enlighten us a little bit, or is that what direction?
Well, I can definitely give some small pieces about it for sure. And before I do, when you said revelatory, with the Black Panther movie and so forth, I spoke in my book about Charles Darwin theories and so forth of evolution and the survival of the fittest and so forth, his idea. Um, I also mentioned biblical references as well, and actually many different references, mythology, and they're all in revelatory, in a sense. Revelation speaks about, the dead rising. So, I'm bringing that to life as the author and the narrator, touching bases on pre-apocalyptic. So, mm, no, the current book is. So yeah, the current book is uh, pre-apocalyptic, before the end of times, what's leading us into, because I'm someone who believes that we don't have long, based upon the direction we're going in, and I bring some light to that. But to speak on my next project, um, I have a series of kind of short stories of things that are unbelievable. I'm going in the direction of unbelievable scenarios, and outcomes, and really get, people more involved with books. You know, it'd be great for book clubs, people book reading, and they will be able to discuss these scenarios and basically get involved together as a group to speak on these particular scenarios, and that's all I will disclose.
All right. Well, she gave us a little un poquito appetite here, appetizer, and everything. You just going back to the Darwinism. I remember when I was in college in the late '70s, a lot of people, and I went to a Christian college. They had an issue with that word. I think as time has come on, has advanced, I have a better understanding of what that exactly means, because oftentimes they will confuse that Darwinism with theology. And as you look at society, truth be told, Darwin didn't create that ideology. That's always been the case. It's always been survival of the fittest, whether it's mentally or physically. The spiritual aspect is when we get into theology and everything. Um, I think it's very, very important that these conversations, they take place. I know one of the reasons why I actually got into to talk shows is because coming up, for me as a youth in Brooklyn in the 70s, there was a lot of information that was being shared on talk shows that was not being shared in mainstream media. Books, reading, the library. Uh, I think coming back to the cybernetics, and then coming back robotics, coming back with the phones. Once again, it's important that we do this. It's important that we have these types of conversations, because there's a numbing almost of us with these robotics that we carry in our hands. There's a numbing because a lot of us have stopped researching. A lot of us wait until the masses say it. A lot of times it's too late when the masses know about a thing. A lot of times you're on the end of it. Now, you said you think we don't have much time left. Now, you talking about the show today, or you talking about on Earth? I'm messing with you. I'm messing with it. I'm messing with it. I'm messing with it. I'm messing. From an eschatological standpoint, that's what you're talking about, end times and everything.
End time prophecy.
I'm a minister of that, and I know we don't have enough time to deal with that, but awesome. However, I have a different spin on that. I don't believe that when Revelations and all that, and keep in mind, there are about 5 books after Revelations that mainstream Christians don't read. The Ethiopian Bible has 81 books in it. Okay, so there are many books that are not included in there. I'm not one who believes that we're toward the end and we're getting caught up in the sky. To me, that's a direct misinterpretation and mistranslation of their wording. It's consistent with a system. There's a system that is dying, and truth be told, a good part of that system has already died. We've seen systems die. We've seen industrialization time frame. We know we're in an IT time frame right now, and even the IT is coming toward an end. We've been dealing with IT since the 70s. So I don't think it's going to be a situation where there's going to be this great big nuclear bomb that a lot of people have been prophesying, and that only a few are going to get left, or somebody going to get caught up, and the rest of the earth is. I think there's a lot of fear that is thrown in there, and as a result, people don't read. They just accept that this is prophecy. So let me go ahead and let me just let this happen. Don't need me reading anyhow. After all, this is God's will, without understanding what God's will really is. God would not create and then say, well, I'm confused, so I'm going to destroy it in the end. It's about understanding, and I go back to, there's a reason why I love that scripture, Proverbs 11:9b, through knowledge. I think the book of Hosea 4:6, it's 4:6 or 4:7. It says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge and everything. And so much of that knowledge we are missing because we don't want to read. We want to wait until the TV tells us what direction to go in. We got a lot going on right now with these guns, right? And I'm just using this as energy. We have a Me Too movement going on. We had a Black Lives Matter going on. In the 80s, we had the kente cloth and everything they was wearing. Truth be told, right now, we got a Black Panther movement that's getting ready to go on and everything. But people are not consistent in the energy. And I think that's the knowledge that they lack. That the consistency is the knowledge. If there's a word, one word, I think that people need to understand, it's consistency. It's not, well, I'm conscious. You should never have been asleep. You should never have been asleep. It's about consistency. It's about staying on the grind, even if you're the only one on the grind. That's why I liked about you, Kim, in that when we first met, and I talked about the genre you went. I know you're getting ready to go in a different direction. I hope you stay with that energy you do have, though, because we need it. We need it because your book, I believe, can be read 15 different times, and I think a person can pull 15 different things out of it because you and I talked that there's so many subliminal messages that you've got in there. And we know that since really the 70s, late 60s, I would say, everything went to subliminal. Everything went to, even our cartoons. I remember as a kid, and then all of a sudden as the late 60s came, early 70s, cartoons changed. They changed. They started bringing these subliminal messages in there, and we got inundated with it, and we accepted it. And now with this information age with these phones, these smartphones, these phones that they know everywhere you're at, these TVs we put in our bedroom that they know everything you're doing. They can remotely access it. I think it's, once again, consistency and understand the knowledge and not being asleep at all, but being active, proactive. In some places, going back to that cockpit, being that one that's in the cockpit that appears to be working with the pilot, but actually you're there like an Uncle Tom, you know, we hear the term Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was actually a spy. But we also hear that Uncle Tom was a sellout. Uncle Tom was a spy. The sellout was the Sambo. So in that cockpit, we need to have that one that's in there and it's consistently doing that. Because otherwise it's just a movement. And then what you're talking about, yeah, there will be an end where that's concerned. There will be an end where that's concerned because those people, they're not consistent in this battle. And make no mistake, it's a doggone battle. It's a doggone battle.
Well, it's funny how you said Charles Darwinism and Christianity. That was kind of a word that, a no word in your school. It's kind of like putting Alabama and Auburn in the same room and let's see who doesn't get into an altercation. So it's the same exact concept here, but I actually go there. Because, if we live in this world where everybody has an idea of something, okay, why not, talk about these topics or these, beliefs likewise and throw them all into one book. And, I allow the readers to come up with their own opinion. I'm non-biased of how anyone thinks. I actually, as an author, don't put my opinions in there. I just put what's actually being talked about in the world, different beliefs. And, we can't deny that there is the survival of